The most dangerous income bracket isn't minimum wage. It's the one that makes you feel rich but keeps you poor. The trap lies between $100,000 and $500,000 annually, where success becomes an excuse for stupidity, and where more money paradoxically creates less wealth. People earning $50,000 learn to be careful with money out of necessity. People earning $2 million have enough to absorb their mistakes. But those in the middle, they earn enough to feel successful, but not enough to survive their own sense of entitlement. I've watched brilliant professionals destroy their financial futures, not because they earned too little, but because they earned just enough to justify elaborate self-deception. They confused income with wealth, salary with security, and lifestyle with success. Let me tell you about Michael, a cautionary tale wrapped in a law degree and delivered with surgical precision to his own financial destruction. Michael graduated from law school in 1995 with $120,000 in student debt and a starting salary at a prestigious firm of $65,000. By any reasonable measure, he was successful. Top 10% of his law school class offers from 3 firms, a clear path to partnership and financial security. But Michael had a problem he didn't recognize. He thought earning more meant he was entitled to spend more. In his first year as an associate, Michael lived modestly. He rented a small apartment, drove his college car, and faithfully paid down his student loans. His lifestyle was Spartan by choice, focused entirely on establishing himself professionally and eliminating debt. But as his income grew, something insidious happened to Michael's psychology. Each raise felt like permission to upgrade his lifestyle. Each bonus felt like validation that he deserved nicer things. Each promotion felt like evidence that he had outgrown his previous standard of living. By his 3rd year, making $85,000, Michael convinced himself he needed a better apartment. I can't bring clients to my current place, he rationalized. He signed a lease that doubled his housing costs. By his 5th year, making $115,000, Michael decided he needed a car that reflected his professional status. Image matters in this business, he told himself, financing a BMW that cost more than his first year's salary. By his 7th year, making $160,000, Michael felt entitled to the lifestyle of someone who had made it. Better restaurants, expensive clothes, luxury vacations, a watch that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Each spending decision was individually justifiable. Michael could afford these things, technically. His income supported his expenses, barely, but that was exactly the trap. Michael was living like someone who earned his current salary in perpetuity, forgetting that income requires continued effort while wealth builds gradually through accumulated savings. The years passed. Michael's income continued climbing. $180,000, $220,000, $260,000. Partner track was within reach, and his lifestyle expanded to match his rising expectations. But something had gone terribly wrong with the mathematics of Michael's life. Despite earning over $3 million during his first 15 years as a lawyer, Michael had accumulated virtually no wealth. His net worth, accounting for his home mortgage, car loans, and credit card balances, was approximately $50,000. $50,000. After 15 years as a successful attorney, earning well above the national average, how had this happened? Michael hadn't been reckless. He hadn't gambled away his money or fallen victim to obvious scams. He had simply spent almost everything he earned, always justifying each expense as reasonable given his income level. Michael had confused his earning power with his spending power, never understanding that wealth accumulates from the gap between the two. The wake-up call came when Michael was 42 and facing a potential partnership decision. The firm was restructuring, and several mid-level partners were being forced out. Michael realized that his income, which had felt guaranteed, was actually quite fragile. For the first time in his career, he calculated what would happen if he lost his job. Despite earning over $4 million in his career, Michael had less than 6 months of expenses saved. His lifestyle required every dollar of his substantial income to maintain. Michael wasn't wealthy, he was employed. Unemployment, no matter how well paid, is always temporary. That realization forced Michael to examine the financial choices he had made throughout his career. What he discovered horrified him. If Michael had simply maintained his first-year lifestyle throughout his career, living on $65,000 annually while investing the remainder, he would have accumulated over $2 million by age 42. $2 million. Instead of the $50,000 he actually had, Michael had earned enough money to become wealthy, but had spent it instead on the illusion of wealth. He had bought the appearance of success while sacrificing actual financial security. The cruelest part was that Michael's lifestyle felt normal to him. He wasn't living extravagantly compared to his peers. Other lawyers drove similar cars, lived in similar apartments, took similar vacations. Michael's financial behavior was socially reinforced by everyone around him. But social consensus doesn't change mathematical reality. And the mathematical reality was that Michael had wasted 15 years of extraordinary earning power on temporary pleasures and status symbols. Michael's story illustrates the most dangerous trap in personal finance: lifestyle inflation. The tendency to increase spending as income increases, maintaining the same savings rate or worse, often ending up with less financial security despite earning more money. This trap is particularly insidious because it doesn't feel like poor financial management. Each individual spending decision seems reasonable. The apartment upgrade makes sense. The car purchase is justifiable. The vacation feels earned. But the cumulative effect of these reasonable decisions is financial mediocrity disguised as success. The psychology behind lifestyle inflation is complex but predictable. As people earn more money, they begin to identify with higher socioeconomic groups. They compare themselves to people who earn similar amounts rather than people who have accumulated similar wealth. This shift in reference group creates powerful social pressure to spend money on status symbols and lifestyle upgrades. People feel they need to look the part of their income level, even when looking the part prevents them from actually becoming financially secure. Michael fell victim to this psychological trap completely. As his income grew, he began comparing himself to other successful lawyers rather than to his earlier self or to people who were actually building wealth. The tragic irony is that many of the lawyers Michael was trying to emulate were making the same mistakes he was. They looked successful because they spent money like successful people, but most of them had accumulated little actual wealth. Michael discovered this during a casual conversation with a senior partner who mentioned being cash poor despite earning over $500,000 annually. The partner owned expensive assets but had little liquid wealth, living essentially paycheck to paycheck despite an income that placed him in the top 1% of earners nationally. This conversation shattered Michael's assumptions about the relationship between income and wealth. He realized that everyone around him might be playing the same destructive game, trading long-term security for short-term status. Michael began researching the actual net worth of high earners and discovered shocking statistics. Despite earning substantial incomes, many professionals in law, medicine, and finance had surprisingly modest net worth relative to their lifetime earnings. They were victims of what researchers call the income trap, earning enough to afford an expensive lifestyle, but not enough to both fund that lifestyle and build substantial wealth. The solution seems obvious in retrospect: avoid lifestyle inflation entirely. As income increases, maintain the same living expenses, invest the difference. But implementing this solution requires psychological strength that few people possess. It requires seeing through the social pressure to live like you earn. It requires ignoring the constant marketing messages that equate spending with success. It requires developing immunity to the status games that dominate professional environments. Most importantly, it requires understanding the difference between looking wealthy and being wealthy. These are not the same thing, and pursuing one often prevents achieving the other. Michael made a radical decision at age 42. He would completely restructure his financial life, treating his discovery as a financial emergency requiring immediate action. First, he calculated his true minimum living expenses, stripping out all the lifestyle inflation he had accumulated over 15 years. He found he could live comfortably on $65,000 annually, exactly what he had earned in his first year. Second, he committed to saving and investing 75% of his gross income going forward. This seemed extreme, but Michael realized he had spent 15 years doing the opposite, saving almost nothing while spending almost everything. Third, he implemented what he called lifestyle deflation, systematically reducing his fixed costs by moving to a modest apartment, selling the BMW for a reliable used car, and eliminating all status-driven spending. The psychological impact of these changes was severe initially. Michael felt like he was moving backward professionally. His new lifestyle seemed inconsistent with his income level and professional success. Colleagues questioned his choices. Friends wondered if he was having financial difficulties. Michael's dating life became more complicated as potential partners judged him based on external indicators of wealth rather than actual financial position. But Michael persisted, motivated by the mathematical clarity of compound growth. Every dollar he didn't spend on lifestyle inflation was a dollar that could compound for decades. The transformation didn't happen overnight, but the results were dramatic. Within 5 years of his financial restructuring, Michael had accumulated more wealth than in the previous 15 years combined. By age 50, despite earning less than during his peak earning years due to changing career priorities, Michael had achieved the financial independence that had eluded him throughout his high income period. More importantly, Michael had developed a completely different relationship with money. He no longer viewed income as permission to spend, but as fuel for wealth building. He had broken free from the lifestyle inflation trap that captures most high earners. Michael's story reveals several crucial principles about the relationship between income and wealth. First, wealth accumulates from the gap between income and expenses, not from the absolute level of income. Someone earning $100,000 annually and spending $60,000 will become wealthier than someone earning $300,000 annually and spending $290,000. This principle seems obvious, but is widely ignored in practice. People focus obsessively on increasing their income while paying little attention to controlling their expenses. They assume that earning more automatically leads to having more. But lifestyle inflation ensures that higher income rarely translates into higher savings rates. Instead, people maintain the same financial stress at higher income levels, never achieving the security they're working to attain. Second, social pressure is the enemy of wealth building. The communities that form around high income earners typically reinforce spending rather than saving behavior. Keeping up with professional peers often means adopting expensive lifestyles that prevent wealth accumulation. Michael discovered that many of his most financially successful colleagues were actually quite secretive about their wealth building strategies. They lived modestly despite high incomes, but didn't advertise this fact because it violated social expectations. The lawyers who had achieved financial independence were those who had resisted lifestyle inflation, not those who had embraced it. But their success was invisible because they didn't display their wealth through conspicuous consumption. Third, character matters more than intelligence in wealth building. Michael was highly intelligent, but his character had been corrupted by success. He felt entitled to an expensive lifestyle because he had earned the income to support it. This sense of entitlement is toxic to wealth building because it prioritizes current consumption over future security. It transforms income from a tool for building wealth into permission for increased spending. Character-based wealth building requires the humility to live below your means, regardless of how much those means increase. It requires the discipline to maintain the same lifestyle despite rising income. It requires the wisdom to value financial security over social status. Fourth, the highest risk lifestyle is one that requires your current income to maintain. Michael had unknowingly created a life that needed every dollar of his substantial salary to function. This made him completely vulnerable to income disruption. True financial security comes from creating a lifestyle that could survive on investment returns alone. This requires building enough wealth that your money works harder than you do, and structuring your expenses so they could be covered by passive income. Michael had done the opposite, creating maximum dependence on continued high earnings. Despite his professional success, he was financially fragile because his entire lifestyle depended on his ability to work at his current income level. The path out of the income trap requires confronting uncomfortable truths about the relationship between spending and happiness. Michael discovered that many of his lifestyle upgrades had provided little lasting satisfaction despite their substantial cost. The expensive apartment had been important for about 6 months before he adjusted to it and began taking it for granted. The BMW had provided a brief ego boost before becoming just his normal car. The luxury vacations had created a few days of pleasure, followed by months of credit card payments. Meanwhile, the financial stress of living paycheck to paycheck at a high income level had created constant anxiety about money. Michael realized he had traded long-term peace of mind for short-term lifestyle pleasures that quickly became meaningless. The psychological benefits of escaping lifestyle inflation were as significant as the financial benefits. When Michael reduced his expenses, he also reduced his financial stress. When he stopped trying to impress others with his spending, he stopped being controlled by their opinions. Most importantly, when Michael aligned his spending with his values rather than his income, he discovered what actually mattered to him. Much of his previous spending had been driven by social expectations rather than personal preferences. This realization led to the fifth principle: lifestyle inflation often represents a loss of personal autonomy. When spending decisions are made to meet social expectations rather than personal goals, you become enslaved to other people's opinions about how you should live. Michael had spent 15 years making financial choices designed to impress colleagues, friends, and potential romantic partners. He had optimized his lifestyle for external validation rather than personal satisfaction or financial security. Breaking free from this pattern required developing confidence in his own values and priorities rather than constantly seeking approval through consumption. It required the emotional maturity to disappoint others who expected him to spend money in ways that made them comfortable. The financial services industry actively encourages lifestyle inflation through marketing messages that equate spending with success. Credit card companies target high earners with premium products that enable increased spending. Luxury brands position their products as rewards for professional achievement. Michael realized he had been the target of sophisticated marketing designed to prevent him from building wealth. The same society that celebrated his professional success had programmed him to sabotage his financial success. Understanding this manipulation helped Michael resist future temptations to increase his lifestyle. He began to see marketing messages as attempts to separate him from his money rather than helpful suggestions for improving his life. The investment implications of escaping lifestyle inflation are profound. When Michael reduced his expenses, he didn't just increase his savings rate, he also reduced the amount of wealth he needed to achieve financial independence. Someone who spends $100,000 annually needs to accumulate at least $2.5 million to generate sufficient investment income. Someone who spends $40,000 annually needs only $1 million to achieve the same level of financial independence. By controlling his lifestyle, Michael had effectively made every dollar he invested more powerful. Lower expenses meant faster progress toward financial independence and reduced vulnerability to market fluctuations. This creates a virtuous cycle where modest living leads to faster wealth building, which leads to greater financial confidence, which makes it easier to resist lifestyle inflation pressure. Michael also discovered that his fear of appearing unsuccessful due to modest living had been largely imaginary. Most people were too focused on their own lives to judge his lifestyle choices carefully, and those who did judge him were often projecting their own insecurities about money. The people whose opinions actually mattered, close friends, family members, and potential life partners, were more impressed by his financial discipline than they had been by his previous consumption-focused lifestyle. Michael learned to take pride in his savings rate rather than his spending rate. He found more satisfaction in watching his net worth grow than he had found in purchasing status symbols. This psychological shift was crucial because it provided positive reinforcement for wealth-building behaviors rather than wealth-consuming behaviors. Michael's identity became associated with financial discipline rather than financial display. By age 55, Michael had accumulated enough wealth to work by choice rather than necessity. His investment portfolio generated enough income to cover his modest expenses, giving him complete career flexibility. This financial independence allowed Michael to pursue work that interested him rather than work that paid well. He discovered that he was more creative and productive when he wasn't motivated by financial desperation. The irony was complete. By living like someone who earned much less, Michael had achieved the financial security that had eluded him while trying to live like someone who earned more. Michael's transformation illustrates the central paradox of the income trap. The lifestyle you can afford prevents you from achieving the lifestyle you want. Spending money to appear successful prevents you from becoming actually successful. The solution requires recognizing that income and wealth are completely different concepts that often move in opposite directions. The habits that increase your income are different from the habits that build your wealth. Professional success and financial success require different skill sets and different mindsets. Michael had mastered the skills needed to earn money, but had never developed the character needed to keep it. The income trap affects millions of professionals who mistake busy bank accounts for growing bank accounts. They see money flowing in and assume they're building wealth, never calculating whether they're spending money faster than they're earning it. Breaking free requires the humility to admit that earning money doesn't automatically create wealth. It requires the discipline to separate lifestyle decisions from income changes. It requires the courage to disappoint others who expect you to spend money you could be saving. Most importantly, it requires understanding that true wealth provides freedom rather than obligations. The goal isn't to earn enough money to afford an expensive lifestyle. The goal is to build enough wealth to afford the lifestyle you actually want, independent of your ability to continue earning at current levels. Michael spent 15 years climbing the wrong mountain, optimizing for income rather than wealth, for appearance rather than reality, for short-term status rather than long-term security. His story serves as a warning to anyone who believes that professional success automatically creates financial success. The skills that make you valuable as an employee are different from the skills that make you wealthy as an individual. Earning a high income is an opportunity to build wealth quickly, not an excuse to spend money freely, but realizing that opportunity requires character traits that professional environments often discourage: humility, patience, and immunity to social pressure. The income trap captures people because it feels like success while actually preventing success. It's a sophisticated form of financial self-sabotage disguised as reward for hard work. Understanding this trap is the first step toward avoiding it. Recognizing that income creates opportunity rather than obligation is the second step. Developing the discipline to live below your means, regardless of how those means change, is the final step. Michael took all three steps, but only after wasting 15 years of extraordinary earning power. His late start cost him millions of dollars in potential wealth and decades of financial stress. The lesson for anyone still early in their career is simple. Decide whether you want to look wealthy or be wealthy. These goals are usually mutually exclusive, at least in the short term. Those who choose to look wealthy will spend their careers earning money to maintain an expensive lifestyle that prevents them from building actual wealth. Those who choose to be wealthy will live modestly, regardless of their income, using the gap between earnings and expenses to build the financial security that eventually provides real rather than apparent success. The choice seems obvious when stated clearly, but millions of intelligent people choose poorly because they've been programmed to confuse consumption with achievement. Michael's story proves that it's never too late to change direction, but it also illustrates the enormous cost of starting late. The compound growth he missed during his high-spending years could never be fully recovered. The income trap isn't just a financial mistake. It's a life mistake that trades long-term freedom for short-term validation. It prioritizes other people's opinions over your own financial security. It chooses appearance over reality, status over stability, consumption over character. Avoiding the trap requires developing immunity to the social pressures that define professional success in terms of lifestyle rather than net worth. It requires understanding that real wealth is invisible, that financial security is more valuable than financial display, and that the goal isn't to earn enough to afford an expensive life, but to build enough wealth to afford the life you actually want. Michael learned these lessons, but only after 15 years of expensive mistakes. His transformation was remarkable, but came at enormous cost. The smartest financial decision isn't earning more money. It's avoiding the income trap that prevents high earners from building wealth. Character beats income, discipline beats talent, savings beats salary. Everything else is just expensive self-deception.